Hello, Malma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Here are tonight's news. First, U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order attacking Twitter for tagging his tweets about unsubstantiated claims about fraud in mail-in voting. And that includes warning for readers to fact-check the posts. Take a look.
The choices that Twitter makes when it chooses to suppress, edit, blacklist, shadow, ban, are editorial decisions, pure and simple. This is the arbiter. This guy is the arbiter of what's supposed to go on Twitter. He's the one he thought, and he used CNN as a guide. CNN, which is fake news. He uses CNN as a guide. His name is Yoel Roth, and he's the one that said that mail-in balloting, you look mail-in. No fraud? No fraud? Really? Why don't you take a look all over the country? There's cases all over the country. Honorable, if you're going to have a guy like this be your judge and jury, I think you shut it down as far as I'm concerned, but I'd have to go through a legal process to do that. How would you shut?
The order is designed to remove a law known as Section 230 from legislation, meaning social media companies who are currently treated as platforms and not publishers will not enjoy legal immunity from the content posted by their users. Experts, though, doubt much can be done without an act of Congress and claim the president is simply passing the buck. Now, Twitter's move to tag the president's tweets comes after years of being accused of ignoring the president's violation of platform rules with his daily, often hourly barrages of personal insults and inaccurate information sent to more than 80 million followers. Now, Facebook chief Mark Zuckerberg waded into the row, telling Fox News that his social network, still the biggest in the world, has a different policy. Take a look. He said, "I just believe strongly that Facebook should not be the arbiter of truth of everything that people say online," Zuckerberg said in a snippet of the interview posted online Wednesday by Fox. "I think," he said, "in general, private companies, especially these platform companies, shouldn't be in the position of doing that." In other news, a police precinct in Minnesota went up in flames late Thursday in a third day of demonstrations as the so-called twin cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul seethed over the shocking police killing of a handcuffed black man. Take a listen.
Amazing grace, how sweet is the sound that saved a wretch like me.
If you're feeling that sadness, that anger, it's not only understandable, it's right. It's a reflection of the truth that our black community has lived. While not from lived experience, that sadness must also be understood by our non-black communities.
The precinct, which police had abandoned, burned after a group of protesters pushed through barriers around the building, breaking windows and chanting slogans. A much larger crowd demonstrated as the building went up in flames. The crowd was protesting the death of George Floyd, a 46-year-old black man who died after Minneapolis police arrested him on Monday on suspicion of using a counterfeit banknote. Police handcuffed him and held him to the ground with a bystander video showing an officer pressing his knee on Floyd's neck. Now, the video showed Floyd saying that he couldn't breathe until he went silent and limp, and then he was later declared dead. Hundreds of people had begun marching in Minneapolis in the late afternoon, many wearing masks as protection against the novel coronavirus. While in St. Paul, just to the east, police said there was ongoing looting as multiple fires were reported. But later in the evening, a large crowd demonstrated outside the city's third precinct. Firemen continued to battle blazes Thursday morning in the busy Lake Street corridor, where more than 20 businesses were set afire. One person was reported dead of a gunshot wound, with police investigating whether he was shot by a shop owner in the area of the most severe rioting. Floyd's family demanded the officer and 3 others who were present, all since fired from their jobs, face murder charges. 2 African American leaders, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, arrived in Minneapolis and urged more protests. Jackson called Floyd's death a lynching in broad daylight. Sharpton, meanwhile, said videos, including police body cam footage, were all the evidence needed to arrest the police officers involved. In other news, China accused the U.S. of taking the UN hostage on Friday over a controversial security law for Hong Kong and warned Western nations to stay out of its internal affairs. The U.S., Britain, Canada, and Australia led criticism of the planned law, which would punish secession, subversion of state power, terrorism, and acts that endanger national security, as well as allow Chinese security agencies to operate openly in Hong Kong.
安理会不是美国可以随意摆布的工具。中国及国际上主持正义的国家，不会允许美国为自身目的绑架安理会。我们敦促美方立即停止这种无谓的政治操弄，为国际社会多做点有益的事。中国政府治理香港特别行政区的法律依据是《中华人民共和国宪法和香港基本法，不是中英联合声明。有关国家没有任何法律依据，也没有任何资格援引中英联合声明对香港事务说三道四。
China's rubber stamp parliament on Thursday approved the plans for the law, which followed 7 months of huge and sometimes violent pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong last year. After China fended off initial American efforts this week to have the controversy put on the agenda of the United Nations Security Council, the U.S. and Britain succeeded in securing an informal discussion about it for Friday, diplomatic sources said. Beijing's proposed security law lies in direct conflict with China's international obligations to guarantee certain freedoms in Hong Kong, the 4 countries said in a joint statement. It also said the proposed law would undermine the one country, two systems framework. They added, referring to Hong Kong's special status within China under the terms of its handover from Britain in 1997. Now, Beijing said Friday it had lodged official protests to the 4 countries. Meanwhile, a Hong Kong-based analyst warned of rounds of retaliation between China and the United States after Washington revoked the special status conferred on Hong Kong because of Beijing's decision to impose a security law on the financial hub. Take a look.
It indicated a tough line of the U.S. on Beijing over the handling of Hong Kong because especially during the coronavirus pandemic, the U.S. has been rather weak in opposing Beijing's encroachment on Hong Kong. So this is a very significant move. So, but whatever measure the U.S. takes, that would affect Hong Kong economy. And if there are escalation, if there are rounds of sanctions or retaliation between China and America, I think Hong Kong's economy and Hong Kong's people will suffer quite a lot. Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is the main source of foreign direct investment and foreign currency, and those are really essential to maybe to the survival of the Chinese regime. So the Hong Kong people believe in that. The Chinese people believe, and also the Americans also think this is one of the weakest point of China. Why Hong Kong is simply put Hong Kong is more valuable to China than to the U.S. That's why if you are try to impose some economic or financial sanction to Hong Kong, that would actually affect the lifeline of Beijing. Actually, the protester and the pro-democrats, they're thrilled, because a few days ago, when they were facing the national security legislation, they were powerless. They felt hopeless, because this was directly implemented by Beijing, and there's no way you can change Beijing's mind. Even now, it is, may not be possible to change Beijing's mind, but they saw some hope. They saw the U.S. is coming to rescue. But maybe they are a little bit over optimistic, because there will be the rounds of retaliation and the escalation, and that may mean the even tightening of the political situation in Hong Kong, and also some possible economic hardship in Hong Kong.
And we're still following the developments of the coronavirus situation around the world. Joining us live from Townsville, Queensland, Australia is Lori Kate Salomon. Hello, Lori Kate.
Good evening, Alma.
Good evening. Tell us, what are the updates in Australia?
So we bring you the latest updates on COVID-19 situation in Australia. As of 9 p.m. tonight, 29th of May 2020, the total confirmed cases are 7,173, with only an increase of 24 new cases since yesterday, with 103 deaths and 6,582 recovered. At the moment, Alma, the state of New South Wales has 3,092 confirmed cases, with 48 only active, followed by Victoria, 1,634, with 19 active cases, and Queensland having 1,058, only 7 current active cases. As the curve continues to flatten, the Queensland government has developed a plan to safe easing of COVID-19 restrictions. As of 15th of May 2020, businesses are reopening, which include retail shopping, dining in, restaurants, cafes, visiting open homes and auctions, beauty therapy and nail salons, with 10 people permitted at any one time. Along with the easing of restrictions, the government are ensuring that business activity will increase. However, it does not compromise the health of the public and staff. State and territory governments have different restrictions in place for public gatherings as well. Here in Queensland, Alma, gatherings up to 10 people are allowed now for outdoor activity, personal training, public spaces, weddings, and also funerals. Gatherings in homes with maximum of 5 visitors are allowed from separate households. And all school students are now back in the classroom for term 2. The government encourages the use of the COVID Safe app and reminds the public to maintain physical distancing, use proper cough and sneezing etiquette, and especially hand hygiene. That's all for Australia, Alma. Back to you.
All right. So, Kate, how is the citizenry reacting to the slow reopening, or the reopening of businesses and there in Australia?
Yeah, people are now more actually out and about, doing their daily tasks, such as going out to exercise, meeting friends in restaurants, and retail shopping has been very popular. But that's how they're going back to normal now.
But of course, they're practicing social distancing measures. I mean, with new normals in place.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Still implementing social distancing as much as possible.
All right, thank you very much, Kate, for your update, and keep the updates coming from Australia. Thank you so much.
This is Lori Kate Salomon from Townsville, Australia. We live in interesting times.
To England now, where Graham Thomas joins us live from the United Kingdom. So Graham, hi, how are you?
Hi, Alma. We're fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So, okay, so what are the updates in the United Kingdom?
Well, here in the United Kingdom,
yes.
the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has confirmed that England is now ready to move to the next step of the lockdown ease. Let's listen in.
269,127 people have tested positive, and that's an increase of 1,887 cases since yesterday. 8,560 people are in hospital with coronavirus, down 11% from 9,607. And sadly, of those tested positive for coronavirus across all settings, 37,837 have now died. That's an increase of 377 fatalities since yesterday. The result is we can move forward with adjusting the lockdown in England on Monday. First, as I set out on Sunday, we will now reopen schools to more children. We will also start to reopen shops as we restart our economy. We'll begin on Monday with outdoor retail and car showrooms where social distancing is generally easier. And a fortnight later, on the 15th of June, we intend to reopen other non-essential retail. At the moment, as you know, people can meet in parks, but not in private gardens. And this was a cautious first step. But we know that there is no difference in the health risk. So we will now allow people to meet in gardens and other private outdoor spaces.
Long-awaited and joyful moment when people will be able to see both parents at once or both grandparents at once in cases where families live apart. All shops still solvent after being forced to lock down up to 12 weeks ago can now open their doors on June 15. But the British leader insisted everyone must continue observing social distancing measures and exercise common sense, a policy that government critics argue is being gravely undermined by the Premier's rule-breaking aid. Mr. Johnson said that despite the slight easing of the rules on meeting people outside, those in England deemed most vulnerable to COVID-19 should carry on in shielding themselves for now. He said to those that are shielding that ministers were looking carefully at how we can make your life easier and hope to say more on that soon. The Prime Minister alerted there will be further local outbreaks and said the government would reapply measures where required, but guaranteed people who lose income as a result of local lockdowns will be helped. According to BBC News, the Prime Minister warned the country should make only limited and cautious progress out of lockdown, which initially began on the 23rd of March. The UK government's chief scientific advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, said the rate of infection was still close to 1, the rate at which the number of new cases can rise rapidly, and that we're still seeing new infections every day at quite a significant rate. That means there's not a lot of room to do things, and things need to be done cautiously, step by step, and monitored. And the test and trace system needs to be effective in order to manage that, he said. His warning came as a new study by the Office for National Statistics suggested 1 in 15 people in England, that's about 7% of the population, have already had the virus. On to a more light news, opera singer Edgaras Montvidas took to the streets of South London on Thursday evening to add a new spin to the weekly Clap for Our Carers event. This is to recognise the frontliners on the state-run health service. Let's hear from the music of the singer himself. With support from actor friend Jason Fleming and volunteers from Critical NHS, Montvidas helped raise money for the charity which provides food and provisions for care workers. Back to you, Alma.
Okay, Graham. Okay, let's listen to the music of the singing of the opera singer. Okay, so thank you, Graham, for your report. I guess we can't get the opera singer for now, but
I would have,
thank you so much for that.
I could have tried myself, but
Yes.
this is Graham Thomas for EBC News here in the United Kingdom, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Graham. All right, Eagle News, we'll be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside, and I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor, or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
All right, welcome back. The impact of COVID-19 on businesses in Canada. Joining us live from Canada, from the British Columbia, is Jeanette Duazo. Hello, Jeanette.
Hi, Alma, and hello to our viewers.
Good to see you
Good
back.
morning from Canada. Yes.
So the impact of COVID-19 on businesses, this is according to a survey, Jeanette.
Yes, correct. So based on results of two surveys done by Statistics Canada, as of March 2020, the top 5 businesses by sector that reported layoffs to staff and have laid off 80% or more of their workforce are the accommodation and food services. They came in at 69%, healthcare and social assistance, arts, entertainment and recreation, at 61%, retail trade at 51%, and educational services at 46.4%. I think I've missed saying healthcare and social assistance is at number 2, 64%. So earlier this week, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce issued a statement regarding the most recent figures about the impact of COVID-19 on retail sector. They were saying that that the retail sector they felt the effect more on the loss of job. So in April 2020, 12,600 businesses took part in the online survey about how COVID-19 is affecting their business. The wholesale and retail, like what I was saying earlier, felt the much bigger loss in jobs. So it's about 374,000 compared to the accommodation and food services sector, which reported 320,000 due to closure and social distancing from the very beginning of the state of emergency due to COVID-19, as they were relying heavily on the conventional physical in-store contact. Also, according to the April survey, 32% of businesses who responded to the survey reported that their revenues from the first quarter of 2020 were down by 40% or more compared to first quarter of last year. The top 3 sectors highly impacted due to lower demands for their products or services are accommodations and food services, arts, entertainment and recreation, and retail trade. So across Canada, the provinces of Alberta, Ontario, British Columbia, Newfoundland, Labrador, and Saskatchewan, all with over half of businesses saw the decline of 20% or more in revenue. So to cope with impact, 45% of businesses reported of changing and or adding new ways to interact with or sell to customers, like increasing the use of virtual online connections. Some businesses in manufacturing develop new products to help cope with the crisis. Surprisingly, 27% of businesses reported no changes with regards to staffing. Some businesses increased teleworking and working remotely for their staff, and these are the businesses in infotech, management and enterprise, and finance insurance businesses. So about 62% of businesses reported that they could reopen or return to normal operations less than 1 month after the social distancing measures are removed. Back to you, Alma.
All right. So also, aside from the businesses, I'm sure there will be, there are also impacts on the employees. Do you know if the survey had any say on the impact on the employees of the COVID-19?
No, well, like on the first part of my report, it says five sectors, five top sectors have reported that they laid off 80% or more of their work staff or workforce. So like in the hotel businesses and restaurants, 69% of businesses have laid off their staff.
Okay. And what about with the way they work now? I'm sure there will be changes as well, right?
Yes. So with the way that they're working right now, a lot of businesses have resorted to teleworking or working remotely, like the ones with like I guess office works. Most of the staff are working remotely since March. So we'll see if that will continue. Some of the malls here in Canada are open, but people are very cautious. Like the other day, I went to Chinatown just because in that strip of that street, there are a lot of line of businesses in Chinatown. So for me, it's kind of safer for me to go there. I am not really comfortable going to the mall yet because, when you go to the mall, it's one opening, one entrance, and then you could see the places like the retail shops, right? But in Chinatown, there's the stores. They have their own. Each store have their own entrances. So for me, that's very comfortable for me. Some businesses are still closed, and some are open. When I was in Chinatown, I spotted one business. They're doing their business pickup, curbside pickup, and it's funny because the owners, they are delivering, or they're giving the products to the customer by lowering a bag attached to a string from a window. So that's how they give their the products to the customers. So even then, like, businesses are still cautious, and hopefully when everything's cleared, they will open their doors. But some businesses are open. Like, their doors are wide open. I see people buying their bubble teas, and a couple with a child, they went into a souvenir shop. So some people, it depends on the people, if they're brave enough to go in.
All right. Thank you so much
Alma.
for your update. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Alma, for having me. From British Columbia, Canada, Jeanette Duazo, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Jeanette. Now, World Bank Group President David Malpass detailed the impacts of COVID-19 on developing countries, saying they were experiencing a double impact. Let's take a look.
It's a double impact. They're vulnerable to the pandemic, to COVID-19 itself, and people are dying in the countries. But then this added problem is they just don't have the resources and the capacity in order to protect their economies. So what we are trying to do is create programs that are as helpful as possible to the countries. And this means tailoring the programs to different countries. Some of the countries have the ability to pass cash to people, to poor people, through a safety net that's similar to what advanced countries have. So in those cases, we can put money through those systems, and it really keeps people out of extreme poverty. One problem is that the governments of developing countries are seeing their revenues go down a lot. That's their tax revenues and their revenues from tariffs, from trade, for example. And so what that means is whatever level of debt they had prior to the crisis is more burdensome. So we're addressing that by providing more resources, by the moratorium on payments that we talked about earlier. The G20 countries, the biggest countries, have been generous in saying that the poorest countries don't need to pay them back for their official debt. That saves money for the developing country, but also means that new investments have some breathing room in order to grow going forward. As countries think about how to build back, having a lower carbon footprint is an opportunity. Oil prices are low now. It's a chance for people to change their systems and improve their systems so that they work better in the future. But I think we have to recognize the reality that with the world entering a severe recession, there's urgency in these tasks that I've talked about because the poverty levels are rising. It's the first time since 1998, that was the Asian crisis, the first time now, again, that the poverty levels are going up instead of down, and that has severe consequences. So that drives the World Bank forward, and I hope drives the developing countries forward to create a better, stronger environment.
Meanwhile, carmaker Renault said that it would cut nearly 15,000 jobs, including 4,600 at its core French operations, as it seeks to steer out of a cash crunch exacerbated by the coronavirus crisis. The company will target savings of more than 2 billion euros or $2.2 billion over 3 years and turn its focus to electric vehicles as it seeks to restore competitiveness in a market reeling from slumping sales after the COVID-19 pandemic forced millions of people into home confinement for weeks on end. Renault had been navigating turbulent waters even before the health crisis, starting with the shock arrest of its former boss, Carlos Ghosn, and financial misconduct charges in 2018, which led to deep rifts in its alliance with Japanese partners Nissan and Mitsubishi. Now, 4 production sites in France could be closed or restructured, according to the automaker, and its hulking factory at Flins, northwest of Paris, will stop making the Zoe electric hatchback from 2034. Overall, production capacity will be cut to 3.3 million by 2024 from 4 million vehicles currently. And the news came as a bombshell in Choisy, south of Paris, where about 100 workers and local representatives gathered at a Renault plant Friday morning. And it employs some 260 people and is alone among 14 French production sites earmarked for closure by 2022 under the plan, according to its chairman, Jean-Dominique Senard. Meanwhile, Paris's famed Galeries Lafayette department store, which receives some 37 million visitors every year, many of them tourists, will reopen this weekend after being shuttered for nearly 3 months by the coronavirus pandemic. Closed along with most other retailers since mid-March, the massive store on Boulevard Haussmann in central Paris will throw its doors open from 11 a.m. on Saturday. Now, France started emerging from 2 months on lockdown on May 11, although the larger Paris region remains in an orange zone or high coronavirus vigilance and has been slower to return to business as usual. The COVID-19 epidemic has killed over 28,000 people in France, the world's 4th highest reported toll. Inaugurated in 1912, the Galeries Lafayette Haussmann claims on its website to be Europe's biggest retailer in terms of sales, with nearly 40 million clients annually. Even as the lockdown was partially lifted in France, shops with more than 40,000 square meters of floor space were forbidden to open before July 10 due to the continued threat posed by COVID-19. And it's one of the main tourist attractions in the Japanese capital, and after almost 2 months of closure, Tokyo Tower is reopening to the public. Visitors have a challenge ahead of them, though. Rather than take the elevator, they're being encouraged to keep their distance and climb the site's 600 steps to the observation deck. Take a look.
風に吹かれて景色見ながらだんだんこう上がるにつれてやりがいが出てくる。
人の流れがうまくいって今まで営業を自粛してた方々が潤っていけばいいなと思ってます。
The iconic red structure normally operates all year round and rarely closes. It closed for 1 day in February 1989 for Emperor Showa's funeral and for 1 week after the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami in 2011. Visitors were previously permitted to use the outdoor stairs only on weekends and holidays, but they can now use them every day. The facility has been closed to visitors since April 8 because of the outbreak of coronavirus. But with the easing of precautions as infection numbers decline, the main deck reopened on Thursday. According to NHK News, if you want to go to the main deck, which is 150 meters up, you're going to be asked to take the stairs. Once at the main deck, which is about halfway up the total height of the tower, you will find markings on the floor to help visitors keep a distance of 2 meters apart from each other. Fewer people are currently being allowed to use the elevator at a time to prevent close gatherings. The Tokyo Tower opened 62 years ago. Meanwhile, Japan is calling for new rules to stop online abuse. That after the death of a young Japanese reality TV star who suffered from social media bullying. To tell us more about it, here's Tyra Lu joining us live from Japan. Hello, Tyra.
Hi, Alma. Good evening, and good evening to all our televiewers. Now, here's the latest news from Japan. The death of a young Japanese reality TV star targeted by online abuse has sparked an outpouring of grief in the country. 22-year-old Hana Kimura committed suicide. She's famous for being cast member on Terrace House, a Netflix show that has become an international hit. She's also a Japanese professional wrestler and TV star and was found dead in her home on May 23rd. When the paramedics arrived at her home, the entrance door was said to be locked and a written notice saying toxic gas is forming was put on the door. A container of a chemical agent was found beside the bed. The Metropolitan Police Department investigators suspect that Kimura herself might have mixed the chemical agents to create a poison gas. The suicide note reportedly included a phrase to her mother, "I'm sorry. Thank you for giving birth to me." News of her death sent shockwaves across Japan, many calling for stricter laws against cyberbullying. She is said to have been the target of hundreds of mean tweets from fans and critics on a daily basis. Local media reports say this abuse got worse after a particular episode, only screened in Japan so far, which saw her getting into an altercation with a roommate. She was also targeted by a torrent of abuse online, reportedly including comments like, "Everyone will be happy if you're gone." Communications Minister Sanae Takaichi denounced cyberbullying as unforgivable and said an expert panel was reviewing the current system for identifying people who post defamatory statements online. According to Japan's NHK, Ms. Takaichi says Japan hopes to have a draft of the new bill as soon as possible. Kimura's death shocked fans not only in Japan but also abroad, with many flocking to the Terrace House Twitter page and a popular Reddit forum for the show to express their grief. One user wrote, "Hana Kimura shouldn't just be remembered as a statistic of how vicious the internet can be. Hana was just a flower waiting to bloom, and she will continue to be remembered by many in our little Terrace House community and the greater wrestling community for what she gave to the world." The wrestling organization that represented Kimura is reportedly weighing legal action against her tormentors, but experts said the hurdles for victims of online abuse are high. They must show that comments are defamatory or an invasion of privacy and go through a two-step court process seeking first the IP address of the alleged abuser and then information on their identity. Yohei Shimizu, a lawyer who has handled similar cases, said few victims bother. The process takes about 10 months and proving the harm caused by a comment can be difficult. Meanwhile, her popular Japanese reality TV series, Terrace House, Tokyo 2019 to 2020, or Tokyo Terrace House, has been canceled. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Tyra, for your updates and your report. And keep the updates coming in Japan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Tyra Pilialu, and we live in interesting times.
Eagle News, we'll be right back.
Protektahan ang sarili laban sa coronavirus disease o COVID-19.
Narito ang ilang paalala.
Takpan ang ilong at bibig sa tuwing babahing at uubo. Gamitin ang looban ng siko. Kung gagamit naman ng tissue, ay tiyaking maitapon ito agad sa tamang basurahan. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong o bibig. Ugaliing maghugas ng mga kamay gamit ang sabon at umaagos na tubig o magpahid ng alcohol-based sanitizer.
Gumamit ng face mask kung ikaw ay may ubot sipon.
O kaya naman ay may inaalaga ang pasyente na mayroong simptomas ng respiratory illness. Itapon ng gamit na face mask sa tamang basurahan.
Sundin ang social distancing. Panatilihin ang 1 metrong layo mula sa ibang tao, lalo na kapag nasa labas ng bahay. Kung maaari ay umiwas muna sa mga matataong lugar.
Laging tandaan, mahalaga ang kalinisan upang sakit ay maiwasan.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
All right, professional football games in Japan will resume in early July without spectators in stadiums after a 4-month suspension due to the coronavirus outbreak. That is according to the J-League. We have decided to resume games on July 4 for the first division. That is according to league chairman Mitsuru Murai, and he announced this online. Football is the second major professional sport in Japan to announce a return to action after a break forced by the pandemic. Following the baseball league's announcement, it would return to play in June. J-League First Division Cerezo Osaka player Yoichiro Kakitani said, quote, worries have not been completely cleared, but it will be best that all teams in the J-League work together and face off with mutual respect. The J-League kicked off the season for one weekend in February before suspending it, following the government announcement on Monday that it will lift a nationwide state of emergency. Japan's Professional Baseball League announced it would start its coronavirus-delayed season on June 19, but without spectators. The virus has killed hundreds of thousands of infected millions and decimated the annual sporting calendar internationally. It forced a one-year delay of the Summer Tokyo Olympics and suspended everything in Japan, from sumo to the Summer High School Baseball Tournament, an enormously popular event that annually receives wall-to-wall live television coverage. And in time of physical and emotional distance, we give importance to the unsung service delivered by our frontliners, our news correspondents, our cameraman, our people in the TOC, our international correspondents all over the world. Without them, we would not have the eagle-eye focus on the facts of this pandemic and its continuing repercussions on our lives. To our international correspondents and all our staff here, thank you for staying in touch with our viewers. Stay safe, protect yourselves and others. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Final volume 450. Fly on to 100%. Landing back. Consumption.